I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
So what's cool about all this is me and you've never done this.
Right.
And I think but I didn't know. So on the way over, I was driving my daughter to vacation Bible study. And I was thinking about, I knew me and you were going to do it this morning. And I was going, okay, why? I couldn't figure out, this is going to sound weird. I couldn't figure out why did I want to do this with you more than anyone else. And I was like, I don't understand. Like in my head, I was going, this is going to be good. I can't figure out why though. Why is this? Why couldn't I just do this with Holman and everything? And I figured it out. Me and you get to spend the fantasy fishing stuff together. And then we'll spend 5 to 10 minutes before that. And we get into these topics, right? And then we're not allowed to talk about them on air.
Right. Andrew cuts us off.
Right. Andrew cuts us off. And I was like, but I've sat around with Holman at night, like on all these deals, and we talk about all this, but it's never on air. And
right.
Okay, so I know his opinion already. So I don't know necessarily. I have a glimpse of your opinion, but we've never got a chance to talk about it.
And I think my opinion, your opinion is about the same as a lot of guys that have been in the industry for a while. You know, we're talking 15, 20 years. Back in what I call the glory days of bass fishing, when it was all over television, everybody was watching. It was a big deal to be a bass pro, a real bass pro.
Ooh, man, that's a lot there. First off, I'll say this. I don't think somewhere we have a lot of problems with the bass fishing industry, and it started a long time ago. And the problem with it was I kind of treat it like baseball a little bit.
Yeah.
Where you have old school and new school, right? But then baseball went through a bad era, and I'm not saying of steroids, but what happened is they let things go on and they tried to keep it hush hush. And
right.
then finally came out, it put a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And they were like shocked at what was going on. And it was baseball trying to cover it up for so long. I feel like fishing's done the same thing as fishing isn't baseball, right? I mean, we are the low man on the totem pole when it comes to viewership and things like that, even though more people fish than play baseball.
Right.
But the thing is you had, I don't know who's to blame. I'm not, but they covered things up in a way that they wanted everything this nice, shiny little, that nothing ever went wrong in fishing. And
it was perfect. Like it was perfect.
Right. So if everything's always viewed as perfect and there's nothing ever wrong, that means that if you see anything that's wrong, right? And we all see something that's wrong on TV and we're like, well, that's wrong, but they don't portray it as wrong. Then everyone's like, oh, that must be right. But all the fishermen are sitting back going,
no, that's not.
Right. And so it got misconstrued somewhere that like, this is the norm. And we're going, but it's not.
I can tell you when it happens, but I'm just not going to say, because we're not once again here to point fingers at anybody. But I do know where it went wrong. And I remember a lot of instances where, like you said, there were things that were going on. And I was sitting here like, yeah, that's not right. And they were just like, well, we're not going to show this. We're not going to air this because we don't want to put a bad taste in people's mouths. And
you
now
you do know.
Oh,
you do think?
Oh, I do know.
Okay.
And it's just, you know, and if I did put it out there, I would look like the bad person for putting it out there, even though it would be true.
What I've figured out, I did a podcast yesterday with Jody White, and he was asking about some of the Angler of the Year stuff, and we got to talking, and I was going on a roll, man. I was saying. I was throwing out there, and I said, and a lot of it gets brought up on, you know probably more than me about what you were just talking about, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
know the insides of, and I'm assuming this was during Bass's era.
Yes.
Okay. So since I wasn't a part of Bass in the sense of like you and like Hallman's told me a bunch of stuff, like Kevin Hackney, like I hear a bunch of things, but I personally wasn't there, so I don't comment on it because I'm one of those guys that really gets mad about people commenting on things when they weren't there, and they just have it makes me. It happens all over the internet, and it makes me so mad. They just assume something and they have no clue, and so I comment now more about like the YouTube stuff. I see stuff
What you see, right?
And I'm like, hey man, and I say this over and over again, is that YouTube, as good as it is and as powerful it is it started off the wrong way with fishermen that really weren't. We would hope that these professional fishermen that we saw would be.
They weren't legitimate. They're not legitimate.
Well, yeah, but we hope that every leader in bass fishing, like the pros, are your leaders.
Right.
That's what you hope for, and that they set the example for everyone else. The people that started the YouTube thing, and I can say this: if someone on YouTube that's one of these guys, then I have no idea who they are because I'm the worst person. I've watched like 10 YouTube videos in my entire life, so I have no. This is 100% not naming anyone because if you name me the 10 biggest guys on YouTube, I wouldn't know who they are. I have no clue, zero clue.
Right.
But I started watching these videos. I started seeing people that did videos, and I would watch like a minute or 2 minutes of their video, and I would have to turn it off because I'm like, well, that's not real. Like, and when I say that's not real, they think I'm like, I think people say are like, oh, well, he's hooking a fish and reeling it in. That's not what I'm saying. No. I'm saying what you're seeing is not reality.
Right.
And so if I take a glide bait and go to this place and throw it around and a 6-pounder eats it, and I'm like, look how awesome this glide bait is. And then you find out like, no, that's some like private stock thing. Like you could go.
They would eat anything. They would eat any bait.
Yeah. And so I've always tried to be real. What happened is that in the process of trying to be real on YouTube, people who were like at the very beginning, this group of YouTube watchers were like,
yes,
I wouldn't say attacked me, but they were like, this isn't any good. This isn't real. Like they were seeing the not real stuff and thinking it's real. And then when they actually saw it real, they were like, what is this about? And I'm like, no, this is the reality of what's going on.
Right. This is what really happens during the course of a tournament day or a fishing day.
Or
not
practice.
Exactly.
Like, you mean I'm not on the phone, like calling everyone before I get there and studying math? No, man. Sometimes I just show up and I just look around and I'm like, I see birds over there. I see mayflies hatching. I look down in the water, see some perch spawning. I mean, that's what we do, right? Like that was the old school. Not everyone, but I'm like, yeah, we just learned. It's what we did.
Yeah, like Joe Thomas used to. Yeah, my pup wants to be in the shot. Joe Thomas, I used to love Joe Thomas's show because he showed the reality of tournament fishing. Like, hey, how tough practice really was and how tough, the tournament what really happened versus these guys on YouTube. They get out there and they cash a check in 40th place and make it seem like they've won the tournament.
Well, the crazy part too is so YouTube is based on
television,
some entertainment value, and then there's some information value. I would think that like if I watched a YouTube video, like one of the biggest, I have no problem saying this, like, dude, the spinning rod. Oh, this is great. You're gonna love this. So the spinning rod. I'm being serious about this. So like I had to start using one, right? And so
you had to start using one.
And before it was just like we just had line on it, right? But then it was like, oh, I gotta throw this braid to fluoro. Okay, I'm like, I've never had to do that in regular fishing, so I had to figure out this knot, and I knew the couple knots I needed to get by, and I needed to learn this knot. So this is not that long ago. I'm not saying it was 5 years ago, but it wasn't like I was in 20 years ago. This was like pretty new, and I'm like, all right, now like it came up the Brent Ayler knot, his whatever, and
The FG knot.
yeah, that was a video. Like I've watched that one probably like 10 times because I always wanted to make sure I was getting it right. And that would be the YouTube, right? It was an informational based video.
Right.
I looked at Brent Ayler. I'm like, yeah, I trust that guy. And so
Right.
that was my information. I swear I've watched that video more than any other video out there on YouTube ever because it was something for me to learn.
And that's what you're trying to get to is guys like that. If they would have started YouTube, then we would be in a lot better place from an information standpoint, for one, and two, from a legitimized standpoint is that dude has won the Forest Wood Cup. He has multiple tournament wins. He uses a spinning rod. He can catch them. So all of his information that that you're going to get from that guy is real. Versus you're getting Joe Blow, who you've never heard of or never seen before, who all of a sudden has 100,000 followers on YouTube, but that dude couldn't fish his way out of a wet paper bag or catch one in a bathtub.
Right. And the other thing is like my reality was when I did some of these like videos or like I did like the deep water series and these things, it would show me from day one of practice starts. And I made like even like the Alabama Waters one, when I finished, you got to see how I practiced the entire time. And then there was a moment in there. And it happened. I love these. These are the best ones. This is the reality of fishing. And okay, let me start over with that. When you see a guy, right, fishing with someone on a lake, and he's not from that lake, and they're smashing him on it, right?
Right.
And they're telling you everything that's great about this lake. They might be giving you the spot and the bait, but what they don't realize is that this phenomenal fisherman went and got in the boat with somebody, and they showed them what they're supposed to be doing and where to. And I'm like, that's great, guys, but like 99% of all YouTube guys that are watching aren't going to go get in the boat with someone else. And go to their spot and catch 6-pounders. So if that's not the reality of what's going on, now they don't talk about that. They don't explain any of that. They just show their all
show up.
Day.
Right.
Yeah, but you're missing that's the hardest part is figuring out why to throw that bait and where to find that spot. They're not doing any of that. So I'm like, y'all are missing everything that's actually you need to know about fishing. You're just seeing the end result. And I always tell everyone that y'all are seeing the end result, but you're not seeing everything to get there. It's why I thought everything was wrong with bass fishing. The elites and FLW, there's nothing they can do about their TV show. I love watching that unfold. But what I'm telling you is like, but you're not seeing how Brandon Polinick found whatever he's throwing whatever on. Right. It doesn't show that long process. Well, when I made those Alabama Waters videos, I showed the process from like I get there and this is what I start doing. And every bite to everything I'm looking for plays out. Well, then the tournament happens and it's day one and it's 10 o'clock and I don't even know how many fish. Maybe I have one or two and I'm trying to fish this grass and do this and nothing's going my way. Oh, I think I had one or two. And next thing I know, I hadn't caught a fish in a boat dock and I'm just passing one and I throw up in there and catch one. And then I catch a big one. And then all of a sudden the wheels turn and like my whole focus goes to right there. And you can see that like, that's not an information thing. That's not a nothing thing. That's you got to see process, practice. And then and you've been in there. People don't realize that you've probably been in there a million times. Wouldn't you say that 90%, this is a big number, 75% of your tournaments, I'm just guessing here, when you started out day one of the tournament, you had a plan. And I would say 75% of those tournaments, that plan changed and sometimes dramatically. And usually when it changed dramatically and you started catching them, I'll bet money you freaking smoked on them way better than a lot of the other tournaments where it kind of went the way you thought it was going to and it never changed. I guarantee you a lot of those times when it changed, you caught them way better.
When I think about all my tournament wins, my national tournament wins, the plan is never happened. It's always something has happened during the event. You know, I look at Okeechobee, where the last day of the event, I didn't even go to the water that I was leading the tournament on. I bailed on it the last day and ran to something else because of boat pressure. You know, uh, Amistad, when I won down there, I basically took a turn and was headed the wrong direction and kept going because I wanted to fish new fresh water. And it ended up paying off finding the area of the tournament that I ended up winning the tournament, catching one of the biggest stringers of the event. Yeah, I mean, it's.
And there's nothing, and it's not Bassmaster's fault. This is not what I'm saying.
No.
If
Right.
if I'm the cameraman and I'm watching Ish do this and I capture it all and it's phenomenal. It's like unbelievable footage and everything.
Right.
But if we're talking about information based, I got no information from that. I
Right.
know
Zero.
that you did something different. I have no idea why. I have no idea what led you, other than you saying boat pressure, which is great. I'll be honest. I'm like, okay, whatever. But you still had a thought of something to go somewhere, and you had all this. You had all the information of your practice,
Yes.
and all this went. So they don't understand. Like every 3 minutes of practice and every 3 minutes of that tournament, you combined all at once, and then made this decision and understood it, and then did it. And if you don't have all that, which is massive, you basically, all you're seeing is you make another a right hand turn other than the left and start fishing.
Right.
But I know for a fact that things went through your head like crazy to make that decision and to pick where you wanted to go. That's sometimes what I'm trying to capture. But these other guys are going, oh, if you had done a YouTube video, a lot of them just going, look how I went in here and caught these fish and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, it really
You didn't happen that way.
Yeah, but that's how you win tournaments and catch fish. And that's what is the hardest thing to portray to people. That's actually the truth of what really fishing is about.
Right. Is decision making on the water, and Ike had it best, fishing the moment. And these guys don't understand fishing the moment because they have information from how many different people and how many different waypoints to go to and go check. Well, okay, this one isn't paying off. Well, I'm going to go to this one.
So this brings me to what we really want to talk about. Is I wasn't going to lead off with this, but it's great that this kind of went this way. So this isn't a slam. This isn't anything. This is I hope people will take this for what it is. And this is a teaching moment. So we just had that Texas Team Trail Championship on Choke Canyon.
Yep.
And we were leading the points. And so me and Russell were like talking about how our entire approach was very calculated for this entire tournament, like from practicing. And this lake was going to be a very spot oriented lake. It was fishing super, super small. It fishes even smaller if you want to win. Like,
right.
There's like 10 spots that you can actually win on. Maybe not even that many. We know that, but you could fish on those 10 spots and do horrible one day, and now you're screwed. And we're trying to win it. So we were trying to win Angler of the Year, and we did. And Angler of the Year was a boat. And so we were very careful about we're not going to try to win two boats, because the first place in the championship was a boat. But we're not going to try to win two boats and end up losing both of them because we went for the other one. When this one, all we had to do was we didn't have to win, right? Just top 12 it, and that's even if the guys won it in second. When do you ever get to fish a boat against basically one other team? That's what it was. So
you take almost the guarantee versus the if come of bird in the hand is better than two in the bush.
Yeah, but it was still hard. It was still a tough tournament, and I think we only caught 7 fish on day one. Now we didn't know we had some plans in place, and we had some backup plans and everything, but they let you go out and boat one. Okay.
Right.
Like the leaders, Angler of the Years got to be boat one, so on and so on. So we knew we were going to get to start on any spot we wanted to.
Right.
So everyone likes to fish down the dam. We didn't go there. We had this other spot where we smoked on them a week before. We went down there in pre-practice, which we never do. But we were like, for a boat, we're going to go put in a little bit extra. So we went down there, and I'm like, hey, this might not be the best. It was. We did catch some big ones there in practice, and they were grouped up, which is there's a reason for that. So it was this one spot, and it was. We didn't study it very much. When you catch, I caught 3 over 5 cranking on 3 casts.
Ooh.
I don't. The spot seems kind of big, sort of, but like I'm like, hey man, I think it's kind of like this cast in this area is, I don't know, maybe you can cast them everywhere, but we don't think so. We think it's right here.
Right.
So there's some rocks, debris and rocks and things, like there's some stuff going on. So we start there. Cameraman's up there with us, when we start fishing. Well, here comes the boats, right? And they all, like 90% of the boats are coming our way and past us. Well, this one boat, and like I said, I'm not knocking them. I'm just, maybe they'll listen to this, and hopefully I think you would agree. We got to start on the juice.
Right.
No doubt. Like we are boat 1 on the juice. We don't really think maybe you can catch a fish over here, over there, but it's day 1 of a championship where you're going to be fishing for a boat.
Yes.
When another team pulled up, now they did not get close. They did not impede where we were trying to cast. If we both long bombed as far as we could, we could probably come within 10 to 20 feet of each other.
Okay.
But we had no problem with them where they were set up or none of that. My only thing was this. I was like, and they were younger guys, and I hope they don't get mad, and I really hope they listen to this. I don't know who they were. I was going, man, guys, we're on the juice.
Right.
We're on it. This is day 1, right off the bat, in the morning. This is when it's going to be best to catch them. I've never in my life understood why someone would pull up, and when someone's sitting on the juice and like fish for stragglers on day 1 of the first hour of the first tournament, like even if that's the best spot on the lake, you have 1,000 times better chance to go anywhere else, even though it's not as good, and it's still fishing, right? Who knows what's good? And get to fish for fresh fish, and you sit on the juice. Or even if you're like, well, that's the only place I got bit, I would 1,000% go somewhere else and try something new, just because when it's all said and done, even if we catch them or don't catch them, if we do catch them, we're 1,000 times going to catch them better than you.
Right.
That was the only part that I was like, man, you're missing an opportunity here, and you've got to think of it that way.
Or you interfere in the event, and neither one of you guys finish well in that event by pulling up when you see somebody on the juice.
Correct.
And I actually had that last year in an MLF event at the last event of the year when, we fish on opposite days. And so I was fishing the spot on day 2. He was fishing it on day 1. We both made day 3 for both of us. And he had an earlier blast off than I did. When I got there, he was sitting on the juice. What did I do? I took off, because I knew that if I would have pulled up there, I could have interfered with either one of us not making the cut, and he ended up making the top 10, and he thanked me for it. And that's one of those deals where it'll pay down the road. And these guys need to understand, yes, you do not pull up on the guys who are on the juice, or pull up even in that area, because your electronics could spook those fish. Anything could happen. But you're
probably not going to catch them.
Right. And you're probably not going to catch them anyways. So yeah, stay away from the guys. And I wish that this new generation would understand that and see that. But I've come to the point where they want it so bad. They want it for the YouTube. They want it for the Instagram. They want it for everything else, that they don't care and look at the bigger picture. is there's times where you just have to lay it down and drive away.
Well, it's like I'm fishing for $100,000, and I'm like, no, you're not. Like, and this is the bad part is that the reality of fishing to what. So in that Toyota series that on Rayburn the other day, I fished enough in my lifetime to know I could go out there and catch a 30-pound bag, and I was in 25th place, and I gave it up to go spend some time with my kids and stuff. And they're like, people were like, man, you never know what might happen tomorrow. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I've been fishing that for 7 days, and I haven't caught a 27 and a 29-pound bag like the leader.
Right.
The guy's about to blast everyone. I'm not winning the event.
Right.
Now that's a little bit more obvious, but a lot of guys are like, I'm fishing for $100,000. And I remember there's an elite event on Rayburn, and we were fishing a local tournament, right? And we were out of everyone's way sight fishing. And this guy is we rolled up in there, and he had been in this area or whatever. And we come through there, and back then I didn't even know elites were going on. We were fishing tournament. We weren't even by anybody. And this guy was going around and doing everything, and I don't even know who he was. And he was pretty far away. And we come in there and we find a fish, we set up on it, we're about to catch it. And he comes over there, and he says, hey, what, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he said something, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And we kept on fishing. He was like, hey man, like, it was such a long time ago, but he basically was like, hey, what are you doing over here? I'm fishing for this elite. I'm fishing for $100,000 on the lineup. And whoever it was leading it was like blowing it away. I was like, no, you're fishing for like second or third, but you're not
at the best, yeah. Right. At the best.
Like, well, man, that fish right there was going to help me. And I'm like, so you've already been by it? And he was like, yeah. Right. I'm like, look, dude, it's a 4-pounder. And no offense, you need a bunch of 7s and 8s to win this thing. So I would go start looking for that. And he was like, oh, I think that's crap. And I'm like, look, man, you had every opportunity to catch this fish. I was like, and I was like, I just don't think you could have caught it. That's why he probably left it. And so he got all mad. And I was like, hey, look, man, I'll get out of here. But you came across the creek yelling at me.
Right.
You could have been like, hey, man, I kind of saw that fish. I was letting it rest. I'm like, all right, cool. I could have done a lot of different things because I'm one of those guys that like you talk. Or
if that fish was that important, you should have been sitting on it when you saw the boat coming in.
I would have been totally fine with him coming over and just talking to me, because I've told everyone, man, if you usually just talk to people, people are pretty good about doing some things. But he came over there all hot, and then telling me my tournament wasn't as important as his because he's fishing for 100,000. I'm like, well, no, you're really not. And I was like, and like I said, I even feel bad even looking back. I'm like, maybe I should have left, but he kind of handled it way in the wrong way. He did everything wrong. I don't even know who it was. I didn't even care. I don't even know.
Right.
I still to this day don't know who it was. It could have been it could have been in the last, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I mean,
and most likely he was, if he was trying to hunker down on a 4-pounder that bad.
Well, he won. He was like 200 yards away, and then comes across over there. It was like 10 or 11 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't like we started on the fish or nothing. And because I told him, oh, that's what it was, because we had been practicing. Oh, that's why I got so mad. It's because I shook it off the day before. Right. And so that's okay. Now I remember the whole story now, because I was like, yeah, we practiced for this event. So we knew where it was. So we pulled up right up on it. He comes over there and starts saying all this stuff. Well, at the time, I did, I guess, kind of know what was going on in the event. Now it's all starting to come back to me. Now I know why I was so mad. I knew what he had the day before.
Right.
He did not have 20 pounds. He didn't even have something anywhere. So like that 4-pounder would have helped him big time. And I was like, I shook this off yesterday, because he was like, I've been in here. I'm like, well, I shook it off yesterday. You didn't catch it yesterday. And here it is now. I'm like, I don't even think you knew where it was, is what I told him. And because he started going off, I'm like, well, you didn't have 20 pounds yesterday. I know this 4-pounder would have helped you. And then he said that. And I'm like, well, no, you need like 30 pounds or whatever to win the event. And so like he was trying, he didn't like the fact that I was in there, but I was like, and he was like trying to say, I fished this whole area yesterday. I'm like, well, we were in here yesterday. We shook this fish off. You didn't need it yesterday. Obviously, I mean, I just didn't like the fact that he was making up stuff and lying, came at us. We're kind of just I was like a, 20-year-old, and he was trying to bully us out of something that I guarantee you came over there because he realized we knew where a fish was and he didn't. That's
right.
What it was.
That's exactly what it was.
But so, yeah, which brought us to the topic of people fishing around each other. And we never talked about the Toledo Bend event. And I remember, so this is where it all started, guys. So if y'all are wondering why this topic got brought up, something happened. We're talking about the Toledo Bend event before one of those fantasy deals. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm driving down the south end of the lake in the boat lane. And I look up and I can't go through the boat lane anymore. And there's 4 boats in the boat lane, all within casting distance. And I'm like, all right, now I got to go out of the boat lane. I ran it. I didn't care. I ran out of the boat lane. Like they were in the boat lane. And I was going, and I was thinking to myself that it was
probably day two.
Day two is what it was. Because I know I was trying to think. I know I went across the lake on day 1. So it was day 2. I instantly was like going to go to, I was mixing up my starting spots to see if it mattered a little bit.
Right.
And when I saw him, now remember, this is an open's a lot different than elite.
Right.
Or an MLF because it's one pro.
Right.
In each boat. There are co-anglers in this. So it's not 4 people fishing in this. It is 8 people. 8 boaters and co-anglers both throwing in an area where every single boat can touch each other.
Right.
And I was going, what? I didn't get into fishing to like, oh, Matt Panger's going to hate me when I say this. I didn't get into fishing to finish 56th place. Right? Because Matt's always that's Matt bringing that up about going, okay, if I finish in this number, he does the math to figure out how to apply for the elites. And I'm like, yeah, but man, if you aim for 56th, that's the best. Like we're aiming for first and might finish 60th. If you aim for 56th, you have a lot better chance of finishing 100. Right? Rarely if you aim for 56 do you finish first.
Right.
And I'm not saying none of us were going to get Ben Milliken. That's not the thing. But
no, he was. We
also went after that to begin with. What Ben was doing, like that way Ben was doing, we didn't know he was going to weigh in that, but that was what we went after to begin with. When you're on day 2 and start with 3 or 4 other boats. Now if you're one of those boats that was there first. I don't know how all that played out because there's a lot to unfold there. But somewhere along the way, you got to be like, this ain't going to cut it.
Right. I've left areas before because of boats being on top of other boats. I left a spot where I weighed a 30-plus pound bag because another boat pulled up on that spot before I got there who watched me the day before catch them. Because I knew mentally that I was not going to catch anything with him being there because I was so angry. And you just have to know that you have to leave. And I ended up running around catching a high 20s pound bag in other places and had one of the funnest days of fishing that I ever had. Now, granted, that was the tournament winning spot. And I will never speak to that angler ever again for doing that because he watched me catch him. And if his boat's on fire, I probably wouldn't stop to pick him up. But I knew that I had a better chance of leaving and actually having a good event than staying there and not having a good event at all. And when you pull up and then all of a sudden 3 other boats pull up, I'd be probably the first person to leave.
Yeah,
and people think that that's okay, and it's not.
It's not, but and that's what we're getting. Like, so we're adapting, right? Me and you, we're adapting to this new way of people doing stuff, and we're gonna be fine.
Yep.
We don't think it's right, but we'll be fine. And it in this last Choke Canyon tournament, our numbers got flipped. And I was telling them, we were telling the tournament directors this, like on day 2, I'm like, we did get the advantage of going out first because of what we did throughout the year. So like that was a cool thing. I'm like, but then we kind of got punished on day 2
because people saw where you were.
Right. So I was like, what if y'all did this? And we gave them an idea. I said, what if you, and we were in 11th after day 1. I said, what if you made it to where Anglers of the Year that's their advantage is they get first off on day 1 of the championship. In day 2, you take off in what number and the
place you're at in the tournament.
Place. And I was like, some people might like, well, that's not fair to the 60th place. I'm like, well, 60th place should have done better throughout the year.
Right.
That's the advantage you get in this not regular season events, but it's the only time they ever have a 2-day event. So me and Russell didn't even think about going to that spot. So we went somewhere totally else. We drove by it around 8:30 because our first spot, we had an area we were going to catch them in the grass, did horrible.
Right.
So we zeroed. We drove past it. It wasn't even the guys that saw us the day before there. And we knew that. We figured someone else, maybe that other boat that was there saw us or saw someone was on it and kept driving. So I was like, and they don't know it was us. I don't even care. But they were sitting there on it. We already knew that before we ever fished the event, that was going to take place, that we were not going to. The only way we thought maybe is if we're leading the event, we could pull up to them and say, hey, guys, we were here yesterday.
We're leading.
I realized it was us, but we caught all of our fish right there. And when I do that, there's 2 things that can happen. He can either say, hey, we don't care. We didn't know that, blah, blah, blah. We're not leaving. And I'd have been like, okay. And we're gone. Or he'd have been like, hey, man, that's fine. We can both share it. If he says we can both share it, I'm out.
I'm gone.
The only way I stay is if they leave, because the sharing stuff
doesn't work.
Not for me, because I don't know how to, I don't do that. And so I'm like you, I'd be throwing in there. I got a bunch of stories about this, but so anyways, we left there, went and started throwing a top water where we knew no one would be, and got in there. We start catching them. I catch a 5-pounder. Next thing you know, we think we've got enough to win everything. We start fishing around like we normally would do. Pulled up on a spot that no one had fished all week. We didn't think much about it. We catch a 8.5-pounder. We weigh in like the 3rd biggest bag of day 2. Like you said, we left where we had caught them on day 1 and went and just started fishing and caught a way bigger bag on day 2, rather than trying to do that other thing, right? Like get on spots with other people, all that stuff. But yeah,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. But but it's being shown on TV like it's the norm.
Right. And people need to realize that it's not. And that's kind of why we're here to talk about this.
And I don't think people realize too that and I have no problem with this. Like when I fished the tour for a little bit, I started watching people. I don't know what happened. Ish froze for a second. When I started fishing the tour, and I can keep going. When I started fishing, okay, you're back. When I started fishing the tour, just for those couple of years, I started realizing that $10,000 checks were a big deal. Like I get it.
Yes.
People did a lot of things for $10,000 checks, and it became this check grab, right? Where people were just going after checks, and that meant, hey man, we can both get on that spot, and I'll come over there with you, and we'll both catch them. When they show that on TV, I have no problem with that. The problem is a lot of times those guys are buddies, and I have zero problem with that as well. But if they don't show that, right, then it looks like, well, I can just pull up to anyone and do that. But I'm like, no. Those guys know each other, talked about it, had no problem with it. It's just like
Right.
like walking a marathon right
I mean,
now.
I've done that, and I'm actually having to go, and I forgot about something I got to go do. So I'm hopping in the vehicle to head that way.
Oh,
So I'm still here. I'm still here though. I forgot my wallet. Can't go to a place
okay.
that you're supposed to go and pay for something that you're supposed to pay for and not have your wallet.
Do you got to go?
Yes, actually I do.
Okay.
Can we finish this? Shoot. How about tomorrow morning? I'll have a lot more time tomorrow morning.
Perfect. That's that because I can cut
Yeah.
it and we just start over. And we just start
Okay.
from that's easy. Perfect. Go do
Yeah,
your
let's
thing.
finish tomorrow. Let's finish tomorrow morning, same time. I forgot. I've got to go do something for the
Yeah,
wife
dude,
this
this
morning.
is easy stuff.
Yeah.
This is easy. Perfect.
Okay.
Hey,
Perfect.
remember where we're at though.
Right. We're at the place of yes. I'll remember here.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Talk to you in the morning.
All right,
Bye.
Let's kind of go into explaining why we restarted it.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm not saying you want to do whatever you had going on, but then
the important honey-do list. Trust me.
yeah, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that you had to go, and then, yeah. So that's what. So we're having a 2-day deal. If anyone's
right,
yeah, we're starting day 2 on our podcast. Not many people do that, but man, people aren't us, right? They can't pull this off. and then you call, I'm not even gonna get into today because there was so much going on with today. Like I think the Lord's punishing us by having things happen to us that we so want to talk about, but we're just not going to. You know, because I mean,
unbelievable.
Then you call me back and you show me your garage. I got a picture of it. I might put that on there and show everyone.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you're calling me back, and it was Matt Panger was calling. We had a lot of phone calls.
We had a lot of stuff. Like people have no idea what goes on in the fishing industry every single day.
No. It was a lot went on yesterday that I think about 99.9% of people won't know about.
Right. I didn't get to fish my Wednesday nighter that I should have won. Probably took like 14 to win or something dumb.
Is that because of your garage?
Yeah, because of my garage. I couldn't leave. My garage was still open at that time.
So
when I sent you that picture, there was still 4 feet of my garage open. And once again, do you leave all your fishing tackle exposed to the world when everybody knows what you do? Guys are like, oh, that's Fish Monroe's house. His garage is open. What can we get? Oh, he doesn't need all that stuff. He can get it replaced. He fishes for a living.
Yeah. I started it was crazy too. It's like I had those guys on from the Texas Team Trail last night. I forgot I was like, I was just in the mood.
Right.
They're from Arizona though. So
who was it?
Seth and Robert, they fished Team Trail stuff. They were driving from Arizona to fish the Texas Team Trail.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And that's really like what I named my entire podcast with them. Like, these guys are nuts. And, but they came down there. They finished second in Angler of the Year to me and Russell.
Did they get a boat too?
No, but they blew everyone else away. I mean, these guys, like, it was pretty impressive. And so we talked to them for a while, or I had them on, but they're 2-hour time zone away. So we started at my time, 10 o'clock at night. And I looked up, we stopped around 12 something. I had to get off with them at 1 o'clock because we were just discussing, we had gotten off the podcast and we were just kind of discussing fish, like other fishing stuff, like sponsorship things and like companies and just kind of like a lot of conversations me and you have about like the professional side and like what's really right, or like what's it really about, and like there's nothing bad about it, but like how do you want to approach it, because it's getting to be where what I told him, I was like, there used to be this one lane You got in that lane, and to get to here, there was one lane to do it. And
Right.
there's not that one lane anymore. And you can look at it a lot of different ways. Russell always told me, he said, man, I didn't really know if I wanted to be a professional fisherman. I just wanted to work in the industry. And so when he works in the industry, fishes what he wants to, has his own schedule. You know, like I like my schedule, like that I create on my own. I sort of pick and choose.
That's where I'm trying to get to.
It's awesome.
Right. Because you get to fish what you want. Long as you're maintaining, selling product for sponsors, they'll still back you. You know, which is a lot of people don't realize that. Everybody thinks, oh, I just go fishing and sponsors are going to pay me. No, that's not the case.
It's not even. They asked about like, hey man, they're like, I don't want to ask you this, but it was about like money and like sponsors and what's on your jersey. And I'm like, hey, look, man, everyone's different. But I was like, I'm telling you right now, don't believe anyone in the industry when they tell you what they make or any of that stuff. Or I was like, and it doesn't really matter what someone else makes or doesn't make. And I'm like, but trust me, it's whatever's semi best for you. But he's like, man, because I kind of feel like a lot of the money sponsors are like from buddies and companies and things like that. I'm like 100%. Like that's so much more the norm than a fishing company paying people money. Now there might be some like royalties or, hey, we have a 10% discount code with you and you're going to give you that percentage. And like I get all that. Very rarely, wouldn't you agree? When I say very rarely, there's this percentage of people that a fishing company pays you. When I say real money, can we say real money is over $5,000?
I don't call 5,000 real money. I burn 5,000 in a week doing dumb shit.
What I would say 5,000 is not a lot of people are getting $5,000 from a company.
Oh no, no, not even close. Right? Yeah.
So 5,000 is
and we can actually drop it down as $500 a month.
Well, 5,000 a year. 5,000 a year from a company, I'm telling you, rarely exists for most people. Like it happens for a very, very select few people. And then but if you can figure out ways to but there's other ways. You just have
there's lots of other ways. You have to be creative.
That was the word I was about to say. Yeah, correct.
You know, I always tell people, I go, when a guy tells you he's making six figures in the industry, find out the kind of car he drives besides his truck. You know, find out how he lives, what kind of vacations he goes on, all the stuff that you would ever want. You have to look at that guy and go, you know, I really remember this guy.
Look at his social media.
Right. And the stuff that he does on his social media. Because
there's a tournament director that's on social media. And I'm like, y'all want to know why I get so mad about tournaments? And I was like, you know, that guy does tournaments for a living. And he is like, he ain't worried about a thing right now. Like building the $500,000 homes and I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you, he's killing it. And he's still taking your $250 and taking 20% out of that.
I'll never forget this. I was at a tournament and a guy, he was fully wrapped up, boat, truck, from a boat dealership. And he's talking about his six-figure deal with this boat dealership. And I'm like, there's very few boat dealerships that's going to pay anybody six figures to go and run a wrap boat unless it's your own dealership or your best buddy that owes you something. But then I remember we went to dinner one night and they had a $20 steak on there. And he barked about a $20 steak. And that right there told me this dude was not making six figures, because if you make six figures, you don't care about a $20 steak. Right. Not at all. And that's how I tell people.
And I don't, and you want to know what? I bark about a $20 steak because I'm not out there making six figures. I also bark about a $20 steak because I lived so long without making any money. And I was like, I think I could probably cook this steak better at my house than at a restaurant. So I have this big deal where I won't order steak at restaurants because I'm like, I bet you I could make this better at my house than here. So I want to go to a restaurant and get something that I can't make at my house.
Right. But you're
That's
not going to brag about making six figures and then bark about a $20 steak.
No, because I'm real honest about how the fishing deal, I was trying to explain to him, maybe you could say it in a better words if anyone watched this. So, when people, I had another thing on the way home. I don't know if I want to bring that. We got totally away from the sharing thing, but I'm not going to forget where we left off the other day. We'll get back to that. You'll be able to explain this better. I was having a hard time explaining it the way I really wanted to. A lot of people go out there about sponsorships, and if their way of sponsoring you, you've heard this all the time. Hey, I'll get your entry fees.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you're fishing the elites or whatever it was, and say the entry fees were $4,000 to $5,000, so we know that that's going to be $40,000 to $50,000. That's right. That's the thing. But when someone's like, hey, we're going to help you with your entry fees. And I'm like, so you want to help me with $5 to $250, maybe it's a team deal. And I'm splitting that. So really it's $125. You're going to help me with $800.
Right.
And I always said, I was like, here's some advice. When you talk to them, don't talk about entry fees.
Right.
Entry fee, I was like, don't talk about gas. You're going to cover my gas. Don't talk about things that fluctuate. I said, it doesn't, if they paid you, explain this better for me. If they paid you $1,000 or your entry fees, it's still $1,000. And I didn't want people going, well, here's your limit of what I'll pay you is your entry fee. And I said, you want to be like, no. It's still cash out of my pocket. So let's get off the tournament scene and just let's focus on money that you might pay me. And here's what I will do for you. And I'm like, hey, unless you're just going to be cool. And I'm like, hey, I don't want anything back from you. I just want to pay your entry fees. I'm like, oh, whatever. But I've had some guys say that, and I semi-turned them down. Right. Because I've turned down some guys that offered me something because I'm like, hey, look, man, what you want out of this, you're not going to get. Right. Because you think that putting a something on my jersey is a big deal. I said, dude, it's not. Mm-hmm. What's a big deal is being by value. Talking in the public, me making YouTube, so all these different things, and me getting what a product, a service, something out there. And I was like, if I don't think I can do that to my ability and make you happy, then I don't want to take your money. Because I was like, because my deal is I don't like the guys that switch sponsorships every year and they're just looking for the next best thing constantly. And what it is like these people that are doing it are getting screwed over as well. Right. Because they're hoping something's going to happen. And this guy's just looking to get some money and he's not going to help you at all. He's going to put his little name on your jersey and no one's ever going to hear about it because for whatever reason, I'm like, no, I want when I get with a company or somebody or something, I'm like, I want something to last for years where you look up and go, hey, dude, I want to pay you more because you're killing it for me. And I can see growth on our end from you and vice versa.
And my deal is I tell everybody you're worth about 10% of what you're asking for from a company. I say you want $100,000 free boat from a boat company. You need to go out and sell $1 million worth of boats. And a lot of people look at how do you sell $1 million worth of boat? Nobody sells. I said it's very easy to sell $1 million worth of boats. You go and you open up a brand new dealership for your boat dealer or your boat company in a place that they need a boat dealership. And then they order over the course of a year $1 million plus worth of boats, which isn't that hard because at the current boat price right now at $100,000, that's 10 boats, 12 boats. And you can't tell me that you're not bringing 10 to 12 customers, one customer a month to that dealership that buys a boat from that dealership. One, the dealership's making money. Two, the boat company's making money because the dealership's constantly ordering new boats. So if you can't go out and do that, then you can't expect getting a free or no charge boat from a dealership.
But the one thing I'll disagree with you on this is, like, I am out here fishing some team tournaments, and I finished 32nd last week, and I was up on stage for 10 seconds with your boat across my jersey. I mean, look what I just did for you.
Yeah, but at the same time,
hey, you get my sarcasm,
right? Yes,
sarcasm.
But your deal, but your deal is like, you are going to finish 32nd, and you're going to go out and win the next 2 or 3.
I know, but like, these guys are so delusional on this stuff.
I know.
Like,
I know.
Like, no one. I've always said, and no one cares. I mean, you really have to make a mark in this industry somehow. I mean, good, bad, be eccentric, something. But I mean, just walking across the stage with your jersey, dude, I couldn't tell you what is on anyone's jersey. No clue.
I don't even like wearing my jersey most of the time. And I tell companies, I said, my value's not in your logo on my jersey at all. My value is me bringing people to your company to buy your product.
Do you think your truck and boat, though, are?
I think
I do
in a very unique way.
I do that. Now, if that is a billboard driving across the country, and if you do the wrap right, and especially if it's I look at wraps all the time and I go, horrible wrap, horrible.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I can't see it. It's some letters. Like,
it blends in. You can't tell it blends in.
It blends in, but then, but if it's also like, did you used to have a dial?
I still have it.
Daiwa.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted I didn't want to throw it out there. Like, that's an easy one to see, right? And regardless, I'm not going to be like, well, Ish Monroe's driving that Daiwa truck. I'm gonna go buy some Daiwas. That's not what it's for. It's just brain recognition. And I learned a lot from Costa. Like, Costa did a phenomenal job of having the word Costa, and this is not easy. This is a hard thing. You don't understand this. Of getting the word Costa and getting rid of the word and just having the C. And that brain recognition to see that, to where they don't have to put Costa across their, that's such a hard thing for people to do.
And that's what Daiwa did. Yep.
And Daiwa did it to where it's not Daiwa across there, it's the logo. And that's
it's the D-back. Yes.
Right. And so, then you start looking up, and Sixth Sense is kind of doing one with their 6. Like, you start to figure out to where it's like, you hear about Daiwa, and you're kind of like, whatever. And then it's like, it sticks in your head. And then when you're up there, maybe looking to buy a reel, like, well, let me just see that one. Let me see that.
Right. Let me see that one. Right. And then if they created a better product, just because you took the opportunity, because that logo popped up in your head, you took that opportunity to grab the reel that you might have not did before. And once you grab the reel and you realize how good it is or how good it feels, you might buy it. And that's what that logo.
Correct. So that helps. But then when you pull up to a boat ramp, right? And they're like, hey, is that Ish Monroe? Or look at that wrap. I wonder who that is. They go over there, and there's some guys that talk and there's some guys that don't. But if you get there up there talking and, whatever. And I mean, I've done it. Like, I keep Strike King stuff with me constantly. And I'm like, if you're a kid and you come up to me, get ready. You ain't leaving empty handed. Right. And even an adult, I'm liable to give you. But I mean, if you're a kid, I mean, I don't even care if you even come up to me. I mean, you're getting something. And so, that's where I think, because I know as a kid, I'll never forget when a guy gave me on the bank a Lure Jensen speed trap. That speed trap, someone get, oh my gosh, the amount of speed traps I got and bought and Lure Jensen stuff after that, from one bait given to me by someone that was fishing while I was on the bank when I was a kid. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah. Now, don't be an adult just coming up asking me for baits. But if
No.
you're a kid,
You're a kid,
you know
you're
how
allowed to.
yeah, you're allowed to. But you see, those guys. Man,
Yeah.
you got any free baits? Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the boat and truck wrap are definitely very huge when it comes
And
to identifying.
especially if you get something non-endemic that like it kind of explains it, or something that's kind of like missing in the industry. So like
Right.
there's some different ones out there that I'm like, oh, that's a good one right there.
And that's the once again the value that we have to add to our sponsors is the type of vehicle we drive. Like I've got a 22 F-250 diesel, lifted wheels, tires. It looks good. Don't wrap your 1986 Chevy Astrovan and then expect people to have the same value.
I don't have an old boat or truck by any means, but I don't have them wrapped either because I think the value on it is I just never I used to see guys and they're like, hey man, I swear to you, man, they're like, I'm thinking about putting this wrap on here. I'm like, all right. And they're going, well, this guy's gonna, I swear to you, they're gonna pay my BFLs.
6 times $100.
He wasn't being overly whatever. I'm like, hey, look, man, do you understand how much that wrap is? Now I wouldn't have done it anyways, but I was like, hey, look, man, what if a year from now someone's like, hey man, I want to pay you $10,000 to run a wrap, but you're running one for $1,000 over here. And I was like, I would just maybe hold out until the right situation comes along because that ain't the right situation. I promise.
And everybody's situation is different. True. And I explain it, but there has to be a minimum. You can't do it for pennies and expect dollars at the end because it's not going to happen.
Now, if you own your own company or something like that, or a buddies or something, and they pay you nothing, like if someone's like, well, man, I do this. I'm like, whoa, if it's your company, I would wrap my truck and boat
in a heartbeat.
2 days.
Because there's a lot of tax benefits to it, and people don't understand that side.
And it doesn't matter. Like when I see wraps like that, I'm like, smart guy. That's a smart wrap right there. You don't have to get paid for a wrap like someone else, but if it's your business, oh my God, or it's your buddies or whatever it might be that like, that's a smart deal.
Right.
Very smart. But hey, so let's get back. I thought
back to sharing. Back to the sharing.
The deal. So there was a tournament. I don't know if the guy would listen, but there was a tournament going on, and we were in the top 10 on the final day, and it was a sight fishing event. And I had ended the day in this pocket. And so I started the day in the pocket, right? I mean, I left fish in there because when I went in there, there was like 9 boats in there. And I'm going, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But I was the last boat. So I went around there, caught some fish on the outside, and everyone started to leave. And when they all left, I was like, let's kind of go in there and see. Maybe there's one left in there. Dude, they were all left in there. Like no one, because I was like, I never saw anyone catch a fish. So I looked down the bank and there were a whole bunch in there. I'm like, well, none of these really helped me. There was a 4-pounder and then a 5. Those would have helped. And so I sat on the 5, not the 4. So I'm sitting on the 5, whatever, but she's really not even on the bed. And I rarely see her. But I'm like, okay, I got a good bag. I'm killing time at the moment. And so let's just kind of see. So but when I went around and looked, I'm like, hey, this is a great starting spot for in the morning time. No one's going to be in here. Well, another guy in the top 10 came in there, caught the other 4-pounder that I had left because I was like, it was going to help me like a little bit. Right. And it ended up helping him get the cut. So the next morning when I started in there, I'm fishing around. It was a weird rainy morning, whatever. And when it finally like 9 o'clock, the sun came out. And I'll start looking, and he comes in here. And I'm looking around. Now, this is a place where, like, this isn't a pocket like in Florida where they all fucking – you could go anywhere on the lake at this moment and go –
and find the same fish. And find the same fish.
Right. And it's a giant lake. And I was going – and I said, hey – and I was pretty harsh. I'll admit I was harsh, but in my head I was like, I said, "Hey, are you coming in here?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, well, I'm out." He's like, "Well, why are you leaving?" I'm like, "Because we can't win."
Right.
And he
People
goes,
don't understand that.
"Well, I don't want to. I didn't mean to do that to you." I'm like, "I'm not mad. I'm just saying, I would have seen you from a long ways away and just turned around." I said, "Because what's good is if we share these, I'm telling you." And so I went somewhere else and found, if not more, and bigger ones. But I was just going, but in my head, I was going, what are we doing here? You know, like we're not, we've got some room to make up. You're in like 9th or 10th place. Like you need to go big because who cares? You're not going to go down any, like you're in the best position in the world. This isn't a winning bag. It's a good place to start, but I would rather just go for like, I was in like 3rd place and I was like, man, you can have it. And I rolled out. And
That's the winning mentality. That's a winner's mentality, is
and I still ended up 4th. I went dropped a spot, but I know my decision was perfect. Like it was 100% the right decision.
Yeah, people don't understand that. I've been in that situation a lot myself, and people just go, "Man, why didn't you just go out and catch 12, 15 pounds?" And because I want to win.
Yeah,
I said I could have stayed in the spot that I was catching them, but they weren't the fish to win. And there was another guy in there, and we're sharing fish. There is an angler, and I used to be really good friends with him and his brother, and they fished the tour. And they were constantly sharing fish. And I would tell them, I said, you guys can't share fish and expect one of you guys to win. Well, when one of the brothers quit the tour, the other brother set the world on fire. And it was just like, well, why is he all of a sudden doing so good? I said, he's no longer sharing fish anymore. He has the fish all to himself. I said, one thing, I room with 2 of the best anglers in the world, John Cruz and Iconelli, and we never shared fish, except for one time. One time I called John over to a spot because he was up flipping bushes at Falcon, and I was on an offshore spot catching a 5 to 7 pounder on every single cast. When I'm catching him like that, yeah, I'm going to let him come over and get a good bag because there's a million bass down there. And when you catch them on every single cast, it doesn't matter.
Well, so I got this other example. We were on fishing the tour on Chickamauga, and I'd had one of these days in practice. I'd had like 2 different. I had north end, south end. The south end were sight fish, but I had this grass bite where I caught. I got it on. It was one of my first ever YouTube videos. So I catch this 11 pounder out there.
What?
Swim bait. Yeah. And it's one of those 11 pounders where like so I caught a 5 and 8, and then I hadn't really fished grass since I'd been there, and I'm going on a swim bait, and I'm like, and I'm like a 3.2, 3.75. I'm like a big one,
a little one.
And so I was kind of like confused about the deal. I'm like, is this? This doesn't make sense. So I moved off the grass bed as far as I possibly could, like 500 to 1,000 yards away, and start throwing down the side. I'm like, I wonder if they're on this end of it, and I'm reeling it, and I load up, and I'm like, and this thing jumps, and I'm going, you're sitting there in practice, and you're just shaking your head, and you're going, really? So I'm reeling this thing in, but there's people around you, so I'm just reeling it in like without any movement. Right. And I'm like, just don't jump, just don't cause a scene. It's dead calm out here. And then a boat's driving by, so I have the button pushed, and it's freaking, and I kind of get it up there, and I never move, I never do anything. And the camera was rolling. I'm like, I was like, all right, well, how do I do this real unconspicuously? So I reach down, I pick it up, and I'm like, and I get it. And I just look at the camera. I'm like, well, this is what an 11 pounder looks like. I've caught enough 10s. This is giant. So I unhook it, zero emotion, because in your head, you're going, it's not tournament day.
Right.
You're kind of confused about what's going on. I had to start down there. Did horrible day 1, like 8 pounds. All my sight fish were going, everything. But I had caught him on a frog the day before in practice, before that day, up north. And I was like, all right, I'm going to start up there. So I start up there. I catch like a 4 pounder. And I think that's all I caught was a 4 pounder. And I come around, and it was not good either. but I did catch a 4. And so I'm kind of going down the bank, and I see Luke Duncan. And me and Luke are cool, really cool, you know. And I was like, and I said, hey, Luke, man, like, you got him? He's like, yeah, man, I'm catching him a lot. And I'm like, all right. And so he's out there and he's throwing on this deal, and I'm kind of going down the bank. And he was like, dude, just go down the bank and throw a wacky rig. And I was like,
oh God, no.
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 And he's like, I'm telling you, you can catch him. I was like, dude, I don't even know how to do that. And so I'm going down the bank, and he said, well, just come out here, dude. Like, you'll get some bites. I'm like, I don't like it. And so, you know, I keep going, and he catches 2 or 3 more, and he's like, look, man, like, it's right here. And I'm like, what do I do here? Because I've never done anything like this. So he's like, Todd, just come over here, set up right here, and just throw next to me. And I'm like, I felt like I was doing something totally wrong, illegal.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I come out there. I don't make 3 casts. And I go, can't do it. I can't do it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And so I leave, and Luke's just laughing at me because he knows. He's like, I was like, I don't like anything. It feels dirty. I'm cheating. I'm wrong. Nothing about this is right. So he said, dude, just go down the bank. And I'm like, what does that even mean, Luke? Like, and there was
throw a wacky rig down the bank
and all this stuff. And there was some and so he was out in front of this like little bitty pocket, and he was on this little ridge. And so I was like, all right. I don't do this random. I just don't flip down the bank. Like, I'm a frogger, sight fisher. Like, I want to do all these other things, not randomly go down the bank. But I wasn't going to throw a wacky rig. So like, rig trips is just a regular old school Texas rig, rage bug, and it was like, I guess I'm just going to flip like everyone else. So I just kind of flipped and kind of worked the bait. Like the first little log with the little reed patch I come to, I catch one like a 3-pounder, and I go,
like,
okay,
3 and a 4. 3 and a 4.
Yeah. Okay. Wait a minute. So I go around the pocket, and I'm kind of just go slow, Todd. We got nowhere to go. I catch a 4-pounder, and I'm like, you would have thought like I got it. Like I got like the wheels are turning, no big deal. So I go through the whole pocket, fish super, never get a bite. Come out of this deal, never get a bite. And I look over, and there's a reed ridge with reeds all on it. And I look over there, and I'm like, and I haven't got a bite on a reeds. There's reeds everywhere on this. Like, none of us have got. I've frogged reeds. I've done everything in the reeds. Never had a bite in the reeds. So I go up to the reeds because that's what we do, right? When we don't get a bite in practice for 5 days on reeds, on day 2 of the tournament, we go to the reeds.
Right.
I go up there, and I'm flipping along, and it's so dirt and nasty, and just like, this is stupid. But it's a little bit clearer, and I see this 2-pounder come out. And I'm like, I can see that. You know, I can see the bottom. Well, okay, wait a minute. And so I go a little bit, another 2-pounder comes out. And I'm like, no, don't tell me I can see a fish on the bed. I don't get 25 yards. And on the point of this little reed pocket, I look up, and I'm like, and dude, I just see it's so freaking shallow. This is the best thing ever. And the camera boat's the camera boat's on some guys over there. And I'm like, that's a fish up there, dude. And I'm talking, she's this deep. I'll tell you how deep she is. I was like, hey, that fish is on a bed. So when I flip to her, she would face this way. Okay, she'll face this way. I would flip behind her, like, to come to her. And she would have to swim out of the bed to turn around to get back.
That's how shallow she was.
She couldn't turn in the bed. It was so shallow. She had to swim out and swim back in.
Come back in.
Yeah, because she would try to, and she couldn't get her body around. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is like, I'm going to catch this. Don't screw this up. This is easy. Because she's dumb. They're not very good when they're in like 5 inches of water. They're crazy spooky. So I catch her. It's a 5-pounder. And the camera.
You thought was a 2? You thought it was a 2?
No. I knew that one was was a big one.
Oh, okay.
I knew that was a big one. And so they won the 2-pounders. I passed up the 2-pounders, but I was like, okay. So I went a little bit further. There's a tree with a bush there, and there's a freaking big one in it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm looking around going, I got like 3 or 4 hours. No one's doing this. I don't even stop on that one. Because sometimes I have this weird thing of like, if you stopped on a 3-pounder and there's a 6-pounder 20 feet further, but you spend all your time on the 3, And then I look around, I'm like, well, I can just go down a couple hundred yards and see.
Check.
Yeah. So I was like, I put it on high, went down it, and I'm like, 2-pounder, 3-pounder. So I had a gauge of what I was looking at. I'm like, I'm going to go catch that big one, but I want to see what else I have to work with. So I went all down it, came back, and I'm sitting over there and I'm messing around, and Luke's like, I messed with this fish. I fished for one forever, and it kept on around, and I was like, God, this stupid thing's in the way. And it was a branch and this other thing, and I got up there and I was like, I kind of got hung on the branch. So I went there to get my bait off, and normally I'd break it off, but I'm like, she was wild. And when I did, I get up there and there's this freaking one sitting in there. I'm like this close to her with my face. I'm trying to get my feet hung, and it's just staring at me. I'm like, that one's just as big. So I get back on off. I'm like, that's why I can't catch the other one. So I ended up catching that one. It's a 6-pounder. Luke's behind me, and he was like, what in the world? I'm like, dude, I'm smashing him. Luke, listen, Luke.
Go throw a wacky rig.
I swear to you, he did. He goes down the bank across from me. I said, dude, I haven't hit that side. I'm like, I got plenty of fish over here. They're like, just go down that ridge right there on the reeds. Goes down it, catches a 4.5-pounder. He makes the cut. I catch like the second biggest bag of the day. And he was like, thanks, man. But it was, we also looked at it as we never shared anything.
Right.
We both kind of tried to, but like, I still went and did my thing with just a little bit of like hey, I didn't do what he told me to do. I went and did my thing, and didn't share his spot. And then I was able to reciprocate it 2 or 3 hours later of going, hey, remember what you just told me? Go do it right down that bank, I guarantee. And that's the kind of help that I think's really cool in bass fishing. It's not to come sit on my spot, throw with me. I know people do it, and I think very few times that can happen, but very few. Yeah. It has to be like the right.
As I said, in my 30+ years, that one time on Falcon, but there was 100 million bass sitting on that spot. And that's the only time I've ever come across a spot like that or that situation. It's Falcon. Right. People have no concept.
I told a story to those guys last night about we were talking about like throwing fish back, or like not throwing fish back, but like catching them, and we were talking about measuring fish. And I was like, and we were talking about the guys that caught 39 pounds. They had 39 pounds with a 5-pounder. And he's like, man, that doesn't happen very often. I'm like, well, it happens down here in Texas, or it used to a couple times, and definitely Falcon was one of them. He's like, really? I was like, well, Russell fished with the guy Harrelson, Charlie Harrelson, and they were fishing one of those team events. I think it was a championship, and he was flipping trees with Russell, and like me and Russell, we caught a lot of giant bags. Same with Russell, and he's winging on 4-pounders out of trees. They have 0 fish in the box right now, and he's catching a 4-pounder, gets it up, throws it right back in the water, flips in the tree, and Russell's like, okay, hey man, what was wrong? He goes, 4-pounder. And he flips back in the tree, catches another 4-pounder, reels in, throws it right back in the water. And he was like, hey man, we have nothing in the box. And he's like, yeah, dude, we ain't gonna win with those. And Russell's like, yeah, I know, I get that, but dude, I've never thrown back
like a 4-pounder.
And he said, dude, he caught 4 or 5 4-pounders and never kept a single one of them. And Russell catches like a 4.5, and he's like, I don't care what you're doing up there. I'm putting one of these in the box. They flipped up like 27, 28 pounds, and he was disgusted. And he was like, Russell's like, hey, look, man, why don't we go? No, I think they fished deep forever. That's what they did. They fished deep. It didn't work. Or I can't remember, it's vice versa. They started flipping. I think they started flipping. Next thing you know, it was 9-pounder this. They caught 42 pounds in the event. None of the 4-pounders would have helped. And they finished 6th. And I was going
with 42 pounds.
42 pounds. It was 4th or 6th. They weren't even That's insane to me. And I was like, yeah, it happens down here, but it hasn't happened. It's not going to happen anytime soon, because it has to be Falcon or Amstead, and neither one of them are. We need some tropical depressions to happen.
And not even just the water coming in. People fail to realize that those lakes had never had big tournaments like elite events on them before. And
So no
that's
one
why they
fished
were so good. And so
yeah,
no one fished them.
and no one traveled down there because like those people that travel down there after all that stuff, I always say it like this. I'm fine with people keeping fish in the
Right.
sense of it's our right to, right?
Right. One or two eat for dinner. I'm all cool with that.
I don't even care if you keep 5. There's a reason you have those limits out there, and most of our lakes at normal times can handle some people keeping 5 fish, like because most of us don't. The problem is when a group of people, and when I say a group of people, it happens after elite tournaments, right? They would swarm down there by. So like when they put those regulations on there, they're like they do studies about how many people visit your lake, things like that. And that's the norm. And then all of a sudden you get an influx of thousands of people for every day, and they're keeping everything. And you're like, well, okay,
twice a day, 2-3 times a day, yeah.
And when a lake like Falcon or Amstead is at the top of its game, it can handle it. It can.
Right.
But just like OHIV, it's going to happen to OHIV. It's going to happen to all these lakes. Nothing stays on top. When it starts to deteriorate, because, and all lakes do that because they can't handle that growth for that long, because the reason it's growing is because of the fluctuation of water.
Right.
And it came up, flooded everything. It's basically a new lake. Well, all new lakes go downhill. Well, if you keep doing that to a lake going downhill, that's why I say you're messing it up. So like when Toledo was at its highest, you could kind of do what you wanted to Toledo. But as soon as it started to fall and you kept treating it like the number 1 lake, it doesn't go from the number 1 lake to the number 5 lake. It goes to the 500th best lake.
Right. Yep.
And that's what people don't. That's when I say, hey man, be careful about keeping fish in the lake when it starts to go downhill. Right. Because some of those lakes just don't have the population.
That's what the study was on Toledo was 60% of the people that visited that lake kept the bass that they were catching. And once again, 60%.
Then they didn't hurt it. I promise you. When it was at its peak, they didn't hurt it. But it stayed there because we had 20-foot grass. And the lake was like just flourishing, and there was grass in every pocket on the lake, and you couldn't
grass and bushes and everything else. There was so much wood that was standing out there, and people couldn't get around. But now you can dang near run the whole lake without running the boat lane.
They flooded it. Salvania came in. They sprayed it. They sprayed the Salvania, which killed all the hay, which killed all the bushes. There's places with no more bushes anymore because they killed them, and there's no more grass. It became a dirt and stump lake, and people thought, well, why? They were like, and I'm like, well, yeah, like things happen, like Mother Nature is running its course, and it killed it off. So now when you keep them, and there's not very many of them, now it hurts it. And so that's the part that I'm like, hey, look, it's not always that just black and white, but we look at it. I don't have to be a biologist to look at something and go, hey, it's okay now, but eventually it's going to tail off.
Right. And that's why I explain to people about California is guys don't keep bass in California. That's why Clear Lake has remained being one of the top lakes in the country. Is you go up to Clear Lake, and on a weekday, there is 25, 30 boats on it. None of those guys are keeping bass. On a weekend, yeah, you might have 150, 200 boats on it, but none of those guys are keeping bass. And so when they don't keep bass and then they get good spawns, just once again, population of more and more bass.
We used to have a lake. We used to have this little lake that we had kept secret for like 10 years. And
what's the name of it?
What's
the name of it?
Oh, I don't even mind anymore. It's Kurth Lake. Everyone knows about it now. It's not even close to being as good. It's like 15 minutes from my house, but we had it. People still ask me like, "Hey, you ever fished there?" I'm like, "Dude, I've been fishing there with no one for years." Like there was 4 of us that fished it. My wife's got one over 14 out of there. We had 50-pound days over there, and we never talked about it. We were very good. One guy kind of messed up and took someone hybrid fishing out there, throwing swim baits, and caught an 8 and a 9-pounder, and it was the wrong guy to take out there. So that was the start. Anyways, so we kept it super secret, crystal clear, sight fit. It's where I sight fished every single day for 10 years. It's where I went.
Nice.
And we never stopped on anything over. If you weren't at least a 7, I'm not stopping.
Right.
But it was a phenomenal grass flipping lake too. Now I didn't really particularly like to flip. It had grass out there in like 22.
Ooh.
I wasn't a fan of grass flipping, because I looked at everything as tournament related, and Rayburn had dropped off as a grass flipping lake. Like we weren't getting so when I got to Rayburn, I had heard about the flipping grass out there deep, but we didn't have any grass. And so I watched the grass flipping deal, guys who were good at it struggle and be so inconsistent. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to learn. I was really young. I'm like, I'm not going to learn to do that. I'm going to figure out my own way. And so I figured out other ways to catch them. And so I became the anti-grass flipper because I figured out what I was doing was so much more consistent and we were winning. And I'm like, these guys have no clue. But we would go out there. I still knew how to flip grass. I just didn't like it in tournaments. I didn't think it was whatever. But we would go out there and smash on them flipping grass. Now, all of us, without saying anything, were like, hey, did you go out there? I'm like, yeah, I went out there like 2 weeks ago. Did you catch them? Caught like 60. It was awesome. Hey, yeah, I think something about going next week. So he might go next week. And then like 2 or 3 weeks later, whatever. Well, this one guy found out, and he like people started kind of figuring out like one here, one there. And one of the guys that I didn't really want to find out went out there. There was a point out there that had him. And he went out there for I think 12 to 14 days straight and set on that point flip grass. Now, after that, I couldn't believe he had the nerve to say, hey man, I didn't really have a good day today. Like I don't think like something's going on out there. I'm like, you mean on that spot you sit on every single day?
You've caught grass? Every one of them, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, man, do you ever hit that? I'm like, yeah, I used to hit that about once every 3 weeks. Because when I went out there, I fished so many tournaments where we're just, you know how it is. It's just such a grind. All we do is shake fish off. It's hot. We find fish and leave them. We're like, what do you do in fishing? I'm like, we're really good at finding fish and leaving, because that's what we do in practice. Right? I mean, it's like we get bites, we never catch them, and then we leave what we know is good to go find other stuff that's probably not as good. And I was like, so it's not what you think. I get to fun fish about less than 10 times a year. I want to go flip grass. I want to go right there and have fun one day. And and so we all kind of looked at it as like, when we go out there, we want it to be our most fun day ever, every time we go.
And he's hit it 12 to 14 times.
Well, so many of those people do that, is that they're like, well, I'm going to go do this every single day. And then they ruin that stuff, and then they struggle. And I'm like, guys, and it goes back to like keeping fish is like, you can keep fish, but if you keep a lake like y'all's lake that keeps producing year after year after year because you manage it a little bit better than everyone else, then you have a lake that's consistent for 10 years, not 10 times 1 year. And I just wish some guys would think about that sometimes, because I'm like, hey man, you never know when it's gone, you might not ever get that back.
I don't think we're ever going to get Amistad or Falcon back.
We'll get
Amistad, definitely.
Falcon we can get back.
Amistad, I don't think so.
We can if it floods. 100% it will.
Okay.
100%. Okay. Something's up with Amistad because it's got grass in there. I honestly believe there's something in the water coming down, because we had grass in there like 12, 14 foot deep, and the fish we either had 14 million, like 15 inches, and then all the
Right.
rest of them were giant, but they were all trying to eat little bitty shad and little, like, something's going on with the forage. It's not the bass, it's keeping the bass from getting big, and it has to be something in that water in the shad.
Not enough tilapia.
There's something's up, and I don't know if it's some I'd heard some stuff about coming floating down the river, like some things coming, like, farming and some other things.
Right.
But I think it needs it needs about 40 foot of water, and it might flush some things out and get it going again. But that's the one I'm worried about, because I don't think because it's had its chance to become, because at first we couldn't get grass in there, but now they had grass.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, now what? If that's not the issue, something else is going on. It's got really big ones. Like, if one can make it to that size, they get giant.
Right.
It's so there's something. You see those lakes that 2 to 4 pounders have a hard time growing in, and you need those 2 to 4 pounders.
Yes.
You need a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But the big ones get giant. They just don't have very many of them.
Right. And the 2 to 4 pounders probably can't eat the size tilapia that are in there now, that are left in there.
Well, I think the small ones are eating the shad, and then the big ones can eat everything.
Right.
And so big ones don't care if it's a white bass, because I think big ones are. I think at Choke the other day, the big ones were eating white bass.
Probably.
Well, when we were cranking them in practice, I was getting these white bass to hit my crankbait, and I just slowed my crankbait way, way down. And it was like giant, and the white bass were big. They were like 8, 9 inches, and I'm like, dude, these blacks are freaking getting them a white bass here and there.
Yes, they are.
So, but how did 50 minutes go by that quick?
I don't know, because
we did longer on this one than we did yesterday.
Yeah, because I had the honey-do list yesterday.
That's true.
The importance, once again, keeping the family happy.
Well,
very important.
I'll let you go. I imagine we'll do this again, because I
enjoyed
it. I think we'll have we definitely will never run out of topics.
Right. Well, there's definitely the topics of the current stuff going on. I mean, people have to check out, social media, know what's going on right now, and all I can do is shake my head.
Do you so I'm still real bad about looking at social media. Like, I don't really follow that many people. I didn't even follow you till yesterday. Like, I just don't pay attention to it. And so when I was like, so I did. I'm following you now, but I was like, I don't really keep track of a lot of things. Matt's our guy who keeps track of stuff.
Yes, Matt's on top of it. Panger is definitely, he's got to keep on his statistics about everything.
It got really wild yesterday for an hour or two. It was really funny to listen to the group call, and then after that it went silent.
Yep.
It's been silent.
Then I texted you guys. And I'm just like, oh my God, really? Yeah. And I go, 30 years of tournament bass fishing. And that's what I think the problem is the reason we don't have the same growth, and the positive growth is things are changing so much and so drastically all the time. I mean, we're talking about a rule that's been in place for since I've been tournament fishing.
Well,
now they just said, oh, okay, it's all free game now. I'm like, really? And it's okay.
Yeah, it's very hard. When we talked about all this, what I had a hard time figuring out is I made that video the other day, and guys, I made that video about scenarios, and because I have a video about breaking rules, cheating, and what's illegal, and all three of those are not all the same. Like, they're not, and so. Some people were like, well, you should be able to do this because you're not breaking the law. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with tournaments have their own rules. And then you have this thing that you didn't really break a rule in the tournament, but I guarantee it's like one of those things where what is that one saying? I can't remember the saying. This is going to be bad, but it was some. This is not right when I say it. There's something like, I don't know what a duck is, but when I see it, oh, I know what it was.
If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's a duck.
But it was saying something like, oh, it was. Oh, now I remember. Oh, that it was. Someone's going to get on this one, but I have to say it now because it's there. There was a Supreme Court hearing on. It was back in the day, and the guy made it famous, and it was over porn.
Okay.
And he goes, I don't know what it is. He goes, I'm not saying that's what it is, but you'll know it when you see it. And that was kind of like, because he said that in court, and everyone just started kind of laughing because it was like, you'll know it when you see it.
When you see it, right.
And so it was one of those deals where I was like, I created a scenario, and I'm like, hey, look, it's not breaking a rule. But I think everyone in the tournament would be like, oh, well, wait a minute. I know you're not breaking a rule, but that's cheating. And so I was like, and so many of these things I was going, hey, I created a scenario that was so outrageous and so stupid that it wasn't in the rules. So they didn't think about creating a rule to stop you from doing it.
Right. But it was cheating.
Oh, well, but if you don't break a rule, is it cheating? Right. So my point was, everyone would say that it's cheating, but cheating is only cheating, I guess,
if you break the rule.
If it's breaking the rule. So which makes it tough when you try to enforce things, because you're like, the tournament directors, they're like, oh, golly, so I have to write another rule to overstep this thing. And that's kind of what I was saying, is that like, there's things out there that I look at stuff, and in this last tournament at the Texas Team Trail on Choke Canyon, they have buoys along the dam. They're probably 75 to 100 yards off the dam. And I don't know if they say no boats. I think they say no boats. And the tournament directors, but there's not a rope. It's just buoys. And, buoys are kind of in the line, but whatever. And it just says, hey, guys, when you see those buoys, he didn't say anything else about the entire lake. He just happened to make a comment. He said, hey, guys, when you see those buoys, treat those as a brick wall. Right. Boat can't go past it.
You can't cast past it.
Can't cast past it. I already knew that. I didn't have to ask him that. No big deal. And that's an obvious one. I've dealt with that my entire life. That's how we treat. It's a brick wall. I don't.
Somebody wants to go.
I don't need something there, a rope, to say I can't. I know that. So I don't even get close. We don't even like get up next to him and try to.
You don't even parallel. You don't even parallel it, because
we had the spot that was even if we threw at it, and even if we threw, we're still 40 yards from the buoy.
Right.
And we were joking. Me and Russell were fishing around out there. It's dead calm. And not that they do this really on Choke, but I was like, but it was day 2 for a boat. And we're sitting there and going, what if I said, and then we were it was day 1. And I was going, wouldn't it be awful to sit there and watch some 7 and 8 pounders start schooling right there? And we'd have to and just go and just shake our heads. Right. And that was our joke. Like, I'm like, good thing they won't do that. But what if we had to see that, watch that, and just go, you got to be kidding me, and just shake your head. I never would have thought of asking a tournament director, can I throw over that stuff? We've fished long enough. I don't think of things in that manner of going, I rarely have to ask tournament directors anything. Right. But because I don't think, I'm just like, yeah, that's not.
You don't think in the gray. That's the deal.
No, I just don't like.
Your life's not in the gray. Your life's either black or white. Buoy, brick wall.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
I don't need an explanation on it. I'm good.
Right. Sign, brick wall. Like fence, brick wall. Like that's how we roll. Yeah.
The only times I get a little bit. So there was one I asked the tournament director on Kentucky Lake. We were on Kentucky Lake, and we were out of the north end, and there was a marina in there. And when I go to other lakes, I sometimes everything's a little bit, and Kentucky Lake has some marinas that you can't cast into the stalls.
Right.
Table Rock has, now I've asked the tournament director on this one, Table Rock has there's like 12
a gas dock.
No. There's 12 marinas that you can't come fish within 50 feet of that marina. So like you have a marina, you can take 50 feet from that marina and draw an imaginary line around that marina. Yep. There's like 12 of them, and they're commercial marinas. And they're usually, the tournament does a great job of posting those on a sheet.
Yep.
And give it to you. I was in a sight fishing event one time, and there was a 4-pounder. And it was a Toyota event. Yeah, I think that was when y'all were up. Remember when I was up there?
Yeah, I remember you were there.
Okay, so, and remember I was in like second after day one. Yep. But I asked Mark, I said, okay, so let me clarify the 50-foot rule. Is it my boat can't be within 50 foot and I can cast over that 50 foot, or is my bait can't be within 50 foot of the marina? Of that imaginary deal. And he goes, your bait can't be. I said, okay. I said, well,
that's cut and dry, makes it easy.
Correct. I said, well, is it 49 or 50? Like, that's going to be really hard for me to figure out. He said, yeah. I said, you know what? I know how long my boat is. I'm gonna go figure it out. So I went and put the tip of my boat on the marina and looked at where the back end of my boat was. I put a thing there, and I said, and I looked, and I'm like, and I looked at my co-angler was with me, and I said, the fish had moved off, and I said, how far do you think that is, man? I can't put another boat there, can you? He goes, I don't think you can. I'm like, it's about 40 foot in it. He goes, yep. I said, that's what I thought. I moved back off, right? Kept on fishing. As we come back, he goes, that 4-pounder is just sitting there. I'm like, I know. I can't throw it. I don't think anyone threw at that 4-pounder in that event. It stayed there throughout because I made day 3 and it was still there. There were still other fish in that pocket. It made the whole event. And I'm like, and I was kind of like, good. Everyone
abided by the rules. Yep.
And I was like, and that's how it should be. But I would call upon that thing because it was kind of a weird deal. But for the most part, so when I was on Kentucky Lake, we had some Karens come down. Yelling at me saying I'm only allowed to fish in the marina. And I was like, hey, look, man, they do the whole, I'm like, hey, you do realize there's boats in here, right? Because he was like, hey, your boat's in here. And I'm like, it's a marina full of boats. Like, well, you're casting up here. You could hit somebody walking. And I'm like, well, you're walking. Am I coming close to you? Like and there was a big one in there. There's like a 7-pounder in there. I had her bite. And I'm like, screw that. I'm coming back here. And they went off on me for like 30 minutes. I didn't care. I left though, but I asked Ron Lampin. I said, hey, I wanted that the next morning at the takeoff. I said, Ron, I want to ask you about this one marina. And the game warden was sitting right there. And I even wanted the game warden. I said, hey, I'm going over there. It's going to get bad. Can I do it? And the game warden's like, you go over there. And if they say one word to you, you call me. I didn't know I was like, are you serious? He's like, yes. I rolled over there, fished around, did whatever, got back in there. They came walking by. One came walking by the guy, and he looked at me and just kept walking. And then the woman 5 minutes later came by looking at me and kept walking. And I'd already told my co-angler was like, is that them? I'm like, yeah. He goes, oof. I'm like, yeah. They didn't say a word, did they? He goes, no. He goes, what do you think that's about? I was like, that game warden 1,000,000% called them
came
up
over and said,
I think he just called him up and said, you better not say one word to anyone that comes in that marina. I guarantee it had to have because they were so adamant. And
then they were just mad. Never said a word. I love it.
They were wrong. But I wanted to make sure I was in the right too, because I was like, I'm in the right. This is just a random marina. I can come in here. And I ended up catching like a 5.5-pounder on a whopper in there before I left. But
James Watson would have been proud.
Oh yeah. I always catch him in that marina anyways. But I was going, I didn't, but I'll check on, but that's a normal fishing marina experience. It wasn't like, it would have been different if I'm like, they had ropes up and no fishing signs. And then I'm over there like, cast or you know, even then, sometimes you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
Like, you're not allowed to put up random ropes and say no fishing.
Right. That's
Some
illegal
places
too.
not. But if not,
Right.
I'll check on that stuff. But you can kind of tell the homemade. You know how people put like the homemade no wake
Oh
buoy?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, you can tell it's like beat up. It's kind of
damn near crayon written.
yeah, and you're like, I don't think that's public, but I don't know. I'll still slow down for you, but something tells me that's not put
It's
out
not legal, right?
Yeah.
So, well, cool. I'm gonna start working on some stuff because I'm heading to Eufaula tomorrow.
Huh?
Eufaula. Heading to Eufaula tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I call it Eufaula.
Yeah. It threw me off. What is today? Today's Thursday?
Thursday, yeah. Got to be there. We start practice on Saturday.
All right.
Yeah.
I will be. I'll see you there.
Wait, you're coming to Eufaula?
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna go ahead. Don't get off. It's good seeing you. I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
I will do this again.
All right.
Hold on.